Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Bootlickers, shittles, dust, shirts, spasms, spazzles. I'm a useful idiot. Today I want to talk about Mexico. And we've seen some press that are talking about the unrest down there. And there should be protests about this. It's a huge change. And what's going on in Mexico is that they're talking about changing a law that's been in place for 75 years. And we know it's a big deal because they actually have to change the Mexican Constitution to essentially allow foreign companies and foreign investments into the Mexican energy sector. And up to now, Pemex, a state-run energy giant, has controlled things in Mexico. And now they're allowing outside investors. So, like I say, changing this law, it's been in place for 75 years. This is a big deal. And there's some basic economic reasons why this is true. So we don't want to overlook that. There's been a fall in production of 25% since 2004. And the Mexicans are sending 1 million barrels a day to the U.S. It's the fifth largest supplier to the United States. And it provides about 30% of Mexican revenue. So they like the revenue. A lot of revenue to the Mexican government comes from the oil industry. And they would like to get a bigger piece of that, particularly if you factor in that there's been a fall in production of 25% since 2004. That essentially means the government's losing 25% revenue. And so they want to turn that around. And the bigger picture for me is that this is a huge change. Like I say, they're going to change the Constitution and change the law that's been in place for 75 years. This is a natural evolution of free trade agreements, and we're seeing more and more cooperative arrangements going on between the United States and the Canadian government. And as Mexico stabilizes, and Mexico is stabilizing, there's a lot of violence that's in the media about Mexico, but a good deal of Mexico is very stable, and they have a very thriving middle class, a big consumer society, and they need to make sure that this society is sustained, and part of that will be bringing in new investment and new companies into Mexico and ramping up the energy industry there. And there's probably going to be a lot of new sources. There's a lot of new offshore discoveries, new areas where there's access to these new oil deposits. And of course, probably want to bring in fracking down there at some point too, like everywhere else. So there's a simple economic reason why, and then another reason why is because this is what the elites in Mexico want. So the elites are going to be very well placed to profit by this handsomely. They're placed inside, so they've already made their moves in the market, will continue to make moves in the market, as well as having access to companies coming in, and kickbacks and bribes and whatever kind of sweetheart deals are going to be rolling into town in Mexico when the big oil companies come in. This is also important down the line geopolitically because there's talk of a North American Union. There's been talk of that for a while. There's the Trans-Texas corridor. And this, whether you believe that they're going to try and unite these three countries, it's really a moot point because the fact is that for all intents and purposes, there's a natural trajectory of that already being constructed. And therefore, we're fairly integrated. The United States is fairly integrated with Canada already on a number of levels. And this integration of Mexico will continue. And part of that will be the crossover with Western oil companies, American oil companies, transnational oil companies operating out of the U.S. that will integrate with the system going on in Mexico. A lot of that's already been done with Canada. So down the line, to expedite the cooperation between Mexico, the United States, and Canada, all the energy policy has to be lined up because that's the way the big oil companies like it, as we know. So this is a natural evolution of trade agreements and integration that we've already seen, and also a precursor of how corporate law will supersede sovereignty of nations And so we'll have to keep an eye on the details of how these foreign companies and foreign investors are going to operate in Mexico. And another clue to what is going on in Mexico is from the words of the Mexican president himself. He said that, quote, "The energy reform is a fundamental transformation which will enable Mexico to strengthen its sovereignty and energy security," unquote. And we know that in the global language of politics speak, we have to take what they say and then make it the opposite, and then it becomes true. So in this case, what he meant to say is that it will enable Mexico to weaken its sovereignty and weaken its energy security. Another reason why we know that's true because President Nieto also said that, quote, "It will boost the economy and create new jobs," unquote. So, of course, it won't boost the real economy and it won't create any new jobs. So that's just how it is in the real world. And another interesting twist in this whole story, and this certainly bears out how extensive globalization and integration is Mexico will also be working with, are in talks with Russian oil companies. So we might actually have Russian oil companies working down in Mexico as well. But like I mentioned earlier, they're bringing in a lot of investment in foreign companies just for the technical expertise, and certainly the Russians have a lot of technical expertise that the Mexicans would value, so no reason to read too much into it. But that said, we should probably see more unrest. This is going to be a very unpopular move, but for all the people that matter, I guess, in Mexican society, this will be a big move for them. And this is a big move for Mexico, changing their constitution, changing the law that's been in place for 75 years to open up Mexico to foreign companies and foreign investors. Just another part of globalization. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.